New Thought Media Network proudly presents New Thought Men's Community Podcast. Mondays at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. With your host, Eamon Duffy. Watch live or anytime on YouTube at New Thought Men's Community. Join Eamon Duffy and his guests as they explore what it is to be a spiritual man today. In partnership with New Thought Media Network. New Thought Men's Community, empowering wholeness, centered in spiritual living.
Hello and welcome to the New Thought Men's Podcast, where we explore what it is to be a healthy spiritual man today. I'm Eamon. It's great to have you with us. Hi and welcome. This is Eamon. We're here today with Reverend Dan Granda, a good friend of mine, and he is a passionate advocate for authenticity and vulnerability, envisioning a world where openness of the soul is celebrated. He is a co-founder of the Soul Evolution Collaborative, a teaching center of the Centers for Spiritual Living. He leads efforts to reshape our approach to life, fostering meaningful connections and innovative strategies for personal and communal growth. With over a decade of experience with the Centers for Spiritual Living, Reverend Dan is committed to creating safe spaces for authenticity, vulnerability, facilitating profound transformations and meaningful connections. Dan, I know all of this about you. You are indeed a brother after my own heart, with similar vision and values. Yeah. And it's so great to have you on the show today. Yeah, and I think I want to start us off with a quote. You just shared with us about values I think let's start off with this. It's because you use the values from Brené Brown. I want to just share a quote from her. It's when I did an interview, men for the first time, 4 years of my study. It wasn't until a man looked at me after a book signing and said, "I love what you say about shame. I'm curious as to why you didn't mention men." And she said, "I don't study men." And he said, "Well, that's convenient." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you say to reach out, tell our story, be vulnerable. But you see these books you just signed for my wife and daughters?" She said, "Yeah. They'd rather me die on top of my white horse than watch me fall down." When we reach out to be vulnerable, we get the shit beat out of us. And there's more on that quote, but that's the essence of it. And I think it's such a powerful message because it's how men have operated. Yeah. And it's how society has operated and told us, die on top of that white horse rather than fall down. Don't be vulnerable with the people in your life, and definitely don't be vulnerable with the women in your life. And I think it's just it's a big issue. It's a big issue because it doesn't allow us as men to be these holistic individuals, right? Yeah. For us to be vulnerable, for us to have feelings, for us to have that gentle, soulful side. Yeah. We have to just be these stoic kind of intellectual and doing machines rather than get to be our authentic self. And these are societal roles that we're buying into and that everybody's buying into and reinforcing. Yeah. So love for you to just talk a little bit about that. Thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, so many. I will I mean, first I'll just say I'll never forget the first time I read that passage in that book, because it was like, oh my God, yeah, that. Like I had never put words to it before, but that was it. That was like the thing, like at the time that like I had never heard anybody say out loud, but knew that like so many people were experiencing and hadn't really connected all the thoughts to, but was having all the feelings about. So to have the words to express it that so clearly was like, oh shit. Like, yeah, that's it, man. Like the expectation is right. And so in the past, the systems and the frameworks of society said, this is what it means to be a man. This is what's expected of you. Do this. Your value as a person is based on what you are able to provide and produce. And to do that, you are not allowed to have any feelings. You're not allowed to be a human. You're not allowed to be a person. And then society to flip it around and beat the shit out of us for it. I mean, right? Like that's really, I mean, I don't think anyone was intentionally doing this, but the system that everybody bought into for generations was you're not allowed. You're not allowed. And so there were very few spaces in generations before ours, I think, where men could share openly about much anything. And so the way that men related to each other was very particular. And so, and I think through men's work, I think there's been a lot of realizations about that, about like, hey, maybe that old way isn't really great for us. Maybe we should do it different. And so I think we have been, and it almost makes it more challenging in a way, because for my experience anyway has been, and I will say the many videos I've seen on YouTube Shorts and TikTok of guys sharing about this has been similar, that you share anything and it like destroys other people, right? How dare you break my perception of who I need you to be?
Yeah.
So we're still being expected in a lot of ways because of the systems and frameworks. We're still being expected to be the traditional white knight on horse on, what is it? The knight on the white horse, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just like the quote, it's like they would rather see me die on that white horse than be vulnerable. And yet at the same time, we're being told men need to be whatever, XYZ, softer, more open, more available, more whatever.
Yeah. It's a paradox.
It is. And I'll say that for myself, like my values don't align with that traditional version of what it means to be a man. And so I've consistently try and let go of that. Now it does come along with a lot of like ingrained thoughts and behaviors and patterns that do take a lot of repetition to weed out and put away and replace with new ideas and new values. So that, that's an ongoing process. And I will say I will, if I had my choice, if I could like flip a switch, I would never go back to that old way. And it is still quite the challenging journey to navigate showing up not as that traditional man, right? And share feelings and be vulnerable and be authentic. And yeah, it does feel like getting the shit beat out of you quite often. Even in like personal relationships, and I don't know that collectively there's really the room for that discussion yet, because I think it feels like we're like, I think the tendency is for the pendulum to want to swing all the way the other direction rather than to let the pendulum fall and create something new. And so it's like, I think we're in the swinging the other direction right now, and it will come back, and we kind of just have to like, let those values kind of be our beacon for a little bit, and maybe take some of the punches, which I still think is less than what it was like to be forced into that pigeonhole of how it used to be.
Yeah, awareness and consciousness is that first step, right? It's the multi-tiered step in the process of change. And change for us as individuals is so hard, much less change on a societal level or a global level. Yeah. And it was interesting because I saw it was a short clip, and it was younger guys, and it was a guy who was basically making fun of another young man who was just who was in tears, a TikTok video, and he was upset about just the state of the world, and and my heart was going out to him. Here's this other guy, how the videos are, like somebody commenting on someone else's comment these days. Just like shaming him for being open and vulnerable. And so it's still very prevalent in our society, and for us to be able to move outside of that, we have to realize that there are safe spaces and there are not safe spaces. TikTok might not be a safe space. YouTube might not be a safe space. Yikes. But men's work, and I think in the company of men and that connection and having agreements about creating that safe space and being able to get our needs met, being able to express our genuine and authentic self. I've had the privilege of being in a men's group for over 25 years and being able to do that with like-minded men. And that's what we do here. Is we bring that support, we bring that understanding, we bring that that safety, so that we can. And at the same time, I kind of applaud this young man for being vulnerable, because when people see that, even though some are going to make fun of it, it's like, there are probably many others who are going, it's a crazy freaking world out there some days, and it just brings me to tears seeing what's going on, societally, what's going on to people. To have a big heart and to have compassion and to have genuine concern for others, I think is something that we definitely don't want to shame. And I think living that values-based life, like what you were talking about in your sharing, and transcending those societal systems. And there are systems, like you said, that have been in place forever. And, since caveman times, really. Meat club, defend, tribe, and, be able to, at least on our personal level, to be able to transcend those societal systems and say, what? With these people, I get to be authentic. Maybe it's with your partner, hopefully, but maybe not. Maybe it's with a group of men. It's probably not a group of men at a bar. It's I think it takes consciousness. It takes a conscious awareness to create that safety and to be able to communicate about it. And so I think these societal systems that are breaking down, quite frankly, and I really applaud the younger generations for just being like, hey, we're not going to do that.
We're just not doing that.
We're not doing it. If I want to hug a guy, I'm going to hug a guy. And it's actually heartwarming and beautiful to feel that love and that connection and that brotherhood, because it's been honestly lonely. So lonely for so many of us men, feeling like we are alone, feeling like we're so vulnerable, and like we do just want it. I mean, we're crying, but we're crying with ourselves. We're not posting it on TikTok or YouTube. And so it's interesting. Go ahead.
No, I said it's interesting because that's exactly the word that came up for me is loneliness, right? Because the system that the solution to the problem is based in the same system that created the problem in the first place, right? And so it's this rugged individual, self-reliant, you got to do it all on your own thing that we've all of us have been born into. And so the system is saying, hey, fix it, but also you fix it. Like don't ask us to fix it. Like you fix it, you on your own, solo, by yourself. Every man has to fix it all on their own. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's exactly the problem is that everyone is expected to be this rugged, individualistic, self-reliant solo being. And that doesn't work, right? Like, that's literally insane. I mean, your mental health deteriorates so quickly. The only option at that point is to shut it down, which is the cycle. That's the problem, right? And so when you realize, when you step out of that cycle, I think the natural realization is loneliness, is this sadness that, like, oh wow, I'm still being expected. I still have to do the whole thing on my own, which I know is not actually true.
Yeah.
Like, in the grand scheme of life, that's not actually true. But the work that it takes to, like, convince other people to go there with you, I have found to be exhausting. And it's so much easier for other people to not want to do that, for me to not want to rely on other people, for, like, it's so much more, I guess, comfortable to lay back into that which wasn't working but was familiar.
Yeah. It even for myself, and I've done men's work for over 30 years, and some days to pick up that phone and say, hey man, I'm struggling today. Can you listen for 15 minutes? Can be one of those hardest phone calls to make. And it's to a certain extent, it's gut wrenching, and I see it pervasive, like what you said, like it's across the board. Women are going through this too, like this rugged individualism, like, hey, you're now responsible for yourself, and it's everyone for themselves is the feeling sometimes that I feel we get. And so to move past some of these societal systems that are saying, hey, don't be vulnerable, don't be, and we have to carve out these pockets of where we can be our authentic self. I mean, my values are, I value authenticity, creativity, community, and love. I mean, those are some of my core values as far as who I am and how I want to show up. And it's hard to show up authentically sometimes in the world, in the outer world. And yet, sometimes it's the most vulnerable thing, even just being able to speak to it in a small way where others can really appreciate, because that's the reality that no one's saying, but to kind of sneak things in and be like, yeah, it's tough out there. It's hard out there these days. It's good to have someone that you can trust, a best friend. And even looking at those statistics right now, right? I mean, we've seen a drop in friendships. We've seen, where there used to be, most people used to have 4 to 6 friends. Now they have like 2 to 3. And I'm not sure that that's the exact ratio, but it's like 1 out of 15 people said they have no friends. They have none that they can just call and feel like they have a best friend to talk to. And, that is just a recipe for disaster, for, what we see as suicide in men, 4 to 1 men. And of course, we don't want to see any, but that's, if we had any kind of that ratio anywhere else, it'd be like, oh my God, let's fix that. And yet it's been a part of us. It's been a part of the culture. It's been a part of the disposable men culture, and that has been. And there are reasons why we've been trained from 3 years old, 5 years, 8 years old to stuff those feelings, stuff them, because back in the day and still today, we need men who can go and fight, who aren't crying on the battlefield, right? That's the whole military model, to be able to break you down and build you up, and, so that you can continue fighting. And it's pervasive into society. It's pervasive into sports. It's competition models. It's all of that stuff. Don't be a wimp. Man up. All of that stuff is just designed to be shame-based instead of encouragement-based. And so I think this is the question for us, and I don't know that we'll have an answer today, but like, how do we shift, individually? How do we shift societal systems, and then how do we shift that global system, those collective values and those collective messages that every culture has around the world? So curious of your thoughts on some of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the theoretical answer,
right?
I mean, some of this kind of feels like a 40 years in the desert Moses kind of deal, where the old ideas kind of just have to die off, right? Because the up and coming generations are so not willing to engage. Not all of them, not totally across the board, but by and large, so much less willing to engage in behaviors of the past that just don't work anymore.
Yeah.
And so, in 20 years, there probably is going to be entirely new systems. I hope, I pray, right? That like, we're just not going to do that thing. And so we have to create something different, right? I mean, we're seeing that like, in the workforce, you have like the news is saying nobody wants to work anymore. Gen Z, Gen Alpha won't blah, 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 whatever. It's like, no, it's not that they don't want to work. It's that they're not willing to be abused and manipulated and taken advantage of, especially when they don't see any sort of result for it. Like they're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so something else has to happen because all the businesses that relied on that are going to either have to figure out a new way or shut down, right? So I think part of it is kind of waiting it out. I think in the meantime, the theoretical answer for me feels like, well, we all have to realize that it takes a community. Like we need to get back to that community thing. And so the double-edged sword of things like TikTok is it has tremendously sped up the rate in which we get to connect with people and the rate at which information gets spread around. So like the war on Ukraine was the first war that we all got to see firsthand, real time, from the perspective and the view of the people there, from like civilians living there.
Yeah.
And like that had never happened before, right? Prior to that, it was like you'd see clips on the news from miles in the distance of bombs being dropped over there. And you didn't see people, you didn't see houses, you didn't see buildings. It was just flashes of lights at night in the distance. Well, the difference of being up close, like somebody with their iPhone live streaming on TikTok of like the dude across the road shooting at you. It's like, oh my God. Right. And now like, seeing real time, like there's like 7 different genocides happening across the world.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Like, it's 2024. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And so the double-edged sword is we're connecting at whatever level of connection that is, right? I don't think that's the same as like sitting in a room with somebody, but we're connecting so much faster and getting information so much more regularly, unfiltered, that it is, I think it's speeding up life in a lot of ways. And at the same time, it's also uncovering things that I think went brushed under the rug for like ever. We'll say one thing and then it doesn't matter if we do something else because no one's ever going to know because it's half a world away. We're America, we're whatever, right? Like, I think there's a lot of that's happened where we put up the facade and what happens behind closed doors happens. And well, here's the happy front facing facade, right? So I think that's come crashing down a long time ago for especially the younger generations at this point. Like that never existed for them. They've always seen behind closed doors because somebody was there with a camera. Right. Yeah. So it is that double-edged sword in a way because we're more connected than we've ever been. And at the same time, the reality of that is like super disturbing a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, or seeing the guy online crying and then somebody else stitching it, ripping on him. Yeah. And I think what happens is it leaves us with some choices to make. And I think the two most common choices, right? Like if this rate of change has kind of been exponential, this shape, right? It's been like this arc upwards. But the life we've been trying to live or told to live has just been this consistent plane. Well, when it's back here, it's really close together, but as it's gone forward and we're still chugging along, well, the rate of change keeps getting further and further away, even though this is still increasing. This is increasing way faster. Yeah. And so people born when rate of change was all the way up here see the disconnect and are like, what life are you living? Like, what are you talking about? What world is that you're living in? But this is the way it's always been. And we've been on this for decades and generations. So what are you talking about? Because this is, and so we have people who double down and then we have people who are like, no, you're insane. This is what's what. And so what do you do? Well, I think what happens is the more we see this change happening, the more we see the insanity, the more we see the toxic guy ripping on the guy who's trying to be vulnerable, I think the more people do wake up to that compassion, the more people do realize the need for connection on multiple levels, connection greater in community, a place to really belong, not fit in, but a place to really belong. Like you as you belong here. Like you are needed. You are a part of this just for being alive. You belong here in this place, and we're all going to take care of each other. And so I think part of it is a mind shift. Part of it is like that critical mass that kind of tips the scale. Like enough people see the guy ripping on the other guy. Like, yeah, there's going to be those people who double down on this plane of this is how it's been, but it's less and less and less. They just happen to be really loud.
Yeah.
There's more and more people who see that video and go, wow, I'm never doing that. We need to do whatever. We need to connect. We need community. We need more people who are willing to be brave enough to share like that. We need community. We need to take care of each other, right? Like,
yeah. And I think that's the answer. I do. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be doing what I do, which is the New Thought Men's Community. Is, I love that we have this connection, that I can connect with you from across the country and say, hey, what's going on, bro? And at the same time, we have a human experience. We have a live experience. We know each other. And so to foster those real life, live friendships, and then enhance them through social media, enhance them through, that online connection. I think to feel that sense of connection, to feel that sense of community, to feel that sense that people care. There are people who care about us. Is imperative these days. As we see, as we were talking about, just the loneliness epidemic. It's what it's been called. I think for people, men seem to be more hard hit just because of those roles in societal systems that are still breaking down. But yeah, it's for all of us to have connection and community, for men to be able to connect and do that inner work that is required of us to have this different consciousness, this evolution in consciousness. It's necessary, it's vital, it's imperative. And for women as well, to get together with other women and do that healing work, do that inner work, so that we can come together as human beings and have those healthier relationships, have that deeper sense of connection. Oh yeah, okay, everybody gets to be vulnerable. Everybody gets to have their emotions. Everybody gets to have their experience and their reality, and to have it be seen and blessed instead of shamed or, shunned. What a beautiful day that will be when society is acting that way, not just like our community and other communities who do have, this sense of safety, this sense of connection, this sense of, yes, you get to be, your authentic self, which is huge. Just
yeah. And I think too, like the evolution of men's work, of women's work, I think is one of supporting each other.
Yeah.
Right. Like, to me, it's felt like an escape in a way in the past, right? Like trying to escape, like what's not working here in this relationship. Oh, I have this group of guys I can go, they get it, which I think can be really important.
Yeah.
And it has been, I think will continue to be. And I think it is also a place in the future where it's like, all right, how do we take what we do here in a way that empowers all of us to go be supportive of each other? Because I think the old system is one of versus.
Yeah.
This binary versus this side of the binary versus this side of the binary. And the way forward is a spectrum where everyone is supporting everybody in their journey through. We're all coming out of this thing that didn't work for anybody.
Yeah. Right. Or it works for a very small fraction of people.
Arguably. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like based on what the system defined as working. Yeah. I guess.
Yeah. Financial success or,
right.
Alpha really? Dog or what, whatever it was. Yeah.
But the damage being done by that version of success to those people and everyone else is like, it's just asinine, man. It really is. I don't know. I don't know why it's like, why is it taking us so long? And maybe it's something people have seen the whole time and just, I don't know, collectively we weren't at a place yet. I don't know, but like,
yeah. I'm sure there were some.
Yeah. I think it's community plus, like it's community, and it's recognizing that it's not a versus. It's not us versus them or them versus us or like, because the us and them doesn't even exist, right? Because as soon as we try and define who they are and who we are, the boundaries start to get real murky and unclear, and there is no us and them.
Yeah.
To even be versus. Yeah. Right? Like it's got to be the whole spectrum of everybody supporting everybody.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
Recognizing that it's 99.9% the same. We're all that level, and that 0.01% is like how I think, or the color of my skin, or my gender, or how can I differentiate myself from you when we're all these unique individual experiences and expressions with this amazing life experience and these amazing, incredible perspective and wisdom that we've gleaned through our through the life experience that we've had. And I think it does bring us back to values, like what are our personal values, like what do we choose to value, like community and connection, what are we really choosing as individuals, but then even to take it to that next level of what do we really value as a society. Is it really money? Is money? Is that the really bottom line? Yeah. like is capitalism? That's the bottom line. Like the profit, no matter what. And for me, that just doesn't fly. That's not on my values. Sure, do we need money, especially in this Western kind of society? I mean, in every society, it's silly to say just Western, but we have these levels that we have to meet our basic needs. But beyond that, it's like, and truth is, like, we're not even doing that. So many people are not even doing that.
Right.
Name it what it is.
Yeah.
And so there is this foundational piece of equality that needs to happen across the board on that level. of just people being able to survive. It's Maslow's pyramid, right? So it's like safety and survival, all this stuff. And then we get up into this, friendship and community and connection. And then like the very top of the pyramid, illumination, like spiritual liberation, like the true deep exploration that new thought is. What is the mystical nature of life? What is, all of this great, amazing, incredible, like inspirational stuff. But if we're down here and, we're not even making the ends meet and we're struggling a couple jobs or 3 jobs or whatever, just to get by, then it just makes it so hard. And we've all been there at some point in our life. We've all been there, in that struggle place where nothing else matters except for, I got to survive. Yeah. I got to pay the rent. I got to get food on the table.
Because there's no time or attention or energy to put towards anything else.
Yeah. Right? It's super hard to get up that pyramid and to cultivate friendship and cultivate community and to look at our values in alignment with who I am, our societal values in alignment, our global values in alignment with who we are and what we want. And the truth is that they aren't. They aren't. I think when we look at society, when we look at politics these days, it's so far off of what the vast majority of people want. They want to address climate change. They want to address the inequality issues. They want to address, the homelessness issues. They want to address these challenges that are going on in our society. And yet it seems like it's just an overwhelming struggle to do any of those things. Like it's just such an uphill battle. And so, I think what we can do is shift that through our values. And that means investing and spending money where we want to invest our values at. It means maybe going by the McDonald's and going to another place that has organic food or has healthier food or has values people over profits, and to make those values-based changes in our lives, to say, I'm not going to shop here because I don't value what they value. And I think on that level, there is a huge place where we do get to have an influence, and that's how we spend our money, where we spend our time, because that's just, even more value is there. Like, if we're spending a lot of time on YouTube, and we're all guilty of it. Like, I'm not saying I'm above any of this stuff because I have spent where did that 2 hours go? I just watched 18 videos and
like, if that's the day, fine. Like, okay, cool. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Having compassion.
Maybe not every day, but right. But and I think that's part of the shift too, right? Is like, rest is resistance. Right? Part of the conditioning has been like, you must grind. And it's like, that's part of what doesn't work, right? Like we're all, that's part of what keeps us in that we're not having our basic needs met, is that you need to grind more so that you can check off the next box. Right? And it's like, putting down that grind culture. Does it happen immediately? No. Does it take a lot of work? Yes, for sure. It takes certainly a transition period and a reminding and re-reminding, like, all the time, of not to engage in that grind culture that is just so normalized.
Yeah.
But it's like, I can take a day if I need a day. I am worthy of it. I don't have to earn rest.
Yeah.
I can just rest. Yeah. I can take a day or a week or whatever. Like, if that's what I need, I can listen to my body and what it's telling me. And like, I've learned to not hit the wall. I mean, dude, for years, right? It would go, crash for like 3 days. And it's like, right. I need to stop doing that. Go, crash. Right. And it's, it's usually, it would be like, a cold or a migraine or whatever, something that my body would put my ass down for a day or 2 or 3 or more. Right.
Yeah.
And like, finally, I mean, after what, like took 20, 25, 30 years to like, oh yeah, I need to not do that. That is not working. And it was listening to me. It was, I am not the one to get up at 5 a.m. and go. If I start at 5 a.m. or 6 or even 7:30 in the morning, I'm done by 10 a.m. I have nothing left in the tank. And I would just push through. Right. But if I like wait a little bit, now I also recognize the privilege in having a schedule where I don't have to start at 7:30 or 8 or 9. Right.
Yeah.
I take an easy morning, start at 10, and I can go for whatever amount of time I need to or want to. How about that? Or whatever amount of time I want to in that day, and not hit the grind because that's what I'm supposed to do, right? So, like, it's an intentional schedule. And yeah, there are days where there's a lot that I think probably needs to get done that day, and I'll do a lot. And there's other days where maybe it's not as much, right? But like, intentionally setting the schedule is a very different experience than hitting the grind. Yeah. And just grinding it out over and over and over and over again.
That gets us into a whole other topic, Dan. Self-care. Self-care for men. What a concept. That will have to be another episode.
Yeah.
Because I think we're about time, but love any kind of final thoughts in closing on, what we were talking about, just values and how to live a value-based life.
Yeah. I mean, I just, values, we kind of talked about this before the recording a little bit. Like, the values conversation has never been less important than the last time we had it. Right? Values have always been more important than the last time, more important than the last time, more important than the last time. And so, I don't know, I've done this exercise for myself probably like 20 times in the last like 10 years. And it's never not been helpful. It has always brought clarity, like to just remind myself of my values has always brought clarity and more understanding of my life and how I want to navigate it. And I think that's like the first step in engaging life differently collectively, right? Like, cause I think at some point, like, values, understanding my values was about me. I think now understanding my values is about us. And I think that's true for a growing number of people, where when I understand my values, we all get to be better. We all get to engage differently. We all get to do community. We all get to live differently. We all get to do life differently. And I think that's really what we're saying this conversation is. It's time for community, not just coming together in closed places, but community to start happening out in the world. Out
of necessity and quite frankly, not just for sure surviving, but also thriving. Oh, brother, I appreciate the conversation. Hey, for those of you interested, you can connect with Dan at the soulevolutioncollaborative.org. And he has 52 weeks of mindfulness guides that you can get direct into your inbox. So check him out. He's an amazing guy. Dan, it's been so great to just sit with you today and have conversation. And I know there'll be many more of these rich, depthful explorations of, who are we? What are we about? And what's the heart and soul of it? So thanks, brother. Thanks for being here today, and look forward to much more down the road.
Absolutely.
I hope you enjoyed this interview from the New Thought Men's podcast. For instant access to all podcast interviews, talks from our summit, men's groups, and so much more, join us at newthoughtmens.community. Thanks so much for being with us today. There's more to come, so stay tuned in.